So, welcome to the CNPA webinar, WEAAD, Then, Now, and Tomorrow, which is going to focus on tools and initiatives to raise awareness and end elder abuse and exploitation. This is a webinar that we're very excited about as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is approaching. So, we've already run through this for people who were very early. I guess this is the one risk of being early. You will hear a few things several times. This is a time to test out your sound. Make sure that you can see the first page of the presentation on your screen. If that is not the case, do let us know. There is a little chat box if you are connected through the internet. And if you are not connected through the internet, you can access the backup PowerPoint on the reminder email that was sent to you about an hour ago. We are currently recording, so please make sure that you mute yourself if you're not one of the presenters. And let us know if you're having any issues before we get started or throughout the presentation with the chat box. So a few housekeeping slides right now. We are going to mute everyone, but if you can mute yourself right away, that is perfect, so we have as little background noise as possible. If you have any burning question at any moment during the presentation, type it in the chat box or send it to me by email. I have added my email address in the chat box as well. And we'll also have a 10 to 15-minute Q&A at the end. So I'll be collecting questions throughout. You can also ask your question at the end. And we'll also provide contact information for our three presenters if you have any further questions or wish to take the conversation further after that. And finally, you will receive an email link for a short survey after the presentation, which is really to inquire about your feedback regarding this webinar, your experience of it on every level. So if you can take a moment to answer the questions, it would be wonderful because it will really help us planning our next webinars. As I said, I'm repeating myself here, but you can join two ways: via computer, using microphone and speaker headset, or via phone using the phone numbers that are visible on this slide right now. There is a number for Canada and a number for the US. The access code remains the same. The online PowerPoint is currently displayed. If you do not see it for any reason, let me know, and you can use the backup PowerPoint which we've made available online. So. Now, a brief introduction of our presenters. We're going to have three presenters today, starting with Dr. Elizabeth Podnieks. Elizabeth is one of the founding members of the Ontario Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, and the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. For nearly a quarter century, she has conducted research, published extensively in the area of abuse and neglect, and supported the efforts of others. And she is also very well known for being one of the architects of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. She has received the Order of Canada. She has received the Queen Elizabeth Golden Jubilee Medal. We are quite lucky and quite proud to have her today. And Elizabeth will be talking about the power of networks. She'll be followed by Raeann Rideout, who is the Central East Regional Elder Abuse Consultant for Elder Abuse Ontario and the current co-chair of CNPA. Raeann has worked in the field of elder abuse for about 18 years, and she currently provides a lot of frontline training, public education, planning, community events, and collaborating on the local, provincial, and national level with different stakeholders. She is a past board director of the Ontario Gerontology Association and the past project coordinator for the Kingston Frontenac Elder Abuse Task Force. And finally, we have Patricia Brownell, who is Associate Professor Emerita of Social Service at Fordham University and Emerita Scholar at Ravizin Center on Aging. Patricia currently serves as the president of the National Committee for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, and she has served as consultant to the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs for an expert group meeting on abuse on older women as a human rights issue. And this is what actually Patricia will be talking about in the third part of our webinar, Human Rights Instruments to Address Neglect, Abuse, and Exploitation of Older Women. As for Raeann, I did not mention it, but Raeann Rideout will be talking about successful tools that have been implemented for WEAAD by Elder Abuse Ontario. So we are now at the start of our presentation. I'm going to put Elizabeth on. If you just give me a quick moment to find her. So here's what we're going to do. Elizabeth is connected with us only through phone, and for a reason that Logic cannot explain, her name does not appear in my list. So I'm going to have to unmute everyone briefly so that Elizabeth can speak to, but please make sure that you are individually muted so that we don't all make noise all at once. All right, well, hopefully this works. Elizabeth, you're on. Enjoy the webinar. Elizabeth? Elizabeth,
Wherever you are.
Yes, hi. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Yep, okay, hi.
Hello. Feel free to get started. I do hear a lot of background noise. Are you or someone else near a very loud window?
Okay.
There we go. Perfect. Okay, good.
Okay, perfect. I welcome everybody, and I want to talk a little bit about networks because they're very close to my heart. And am I okay?
Yep, you're okay.
Oh, okay, I can hear a lot of noise.
I know. Everyone, please remember to mute yourselves if you can.
Okay, there's a lot of background noise.
I know. I'm trying my best.
Just for those people, sorry, for those people who don't know how to mute yourself, you just click on the green button to the side of your name.
Okay, I want to tell you that networks have started in the 1980s, and they began as small grassroots initiatives that really sort of brought people together, people who were concerned about growing reports about elder abuse. And a lot of the initial people were in researchers in universities, people in senior organizations. Seniors were also concerned about the reports of elder abuse, and so it really started as a grassroots initiative. I want to mention the International Network, which is a network and which started the World Day, and Raeann's going to be talking a little bit more about that, but the International Network is an example of how we brought people together from around the world to become involved in the problem of elder abuse. And then other networks will be referred to, such as OEA and the NCPEA, which Dr. Brownell will speak about.
A report regarding financial
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm just trying
Okay, I hear it. Okay, so I want to make it very clear that Canada has been a real pioneer in the development and leadership of national networks, and they have served such a purpose.
Hopefully get them going on that. Thank you for letting me know.
Hold on just a second, Elizabeth. I think someone is talking at the same time. Okay. Sorry about that, Elizabeth.
Oh, that's okay. So the purpose of networks is to have shared leadership rather than sort of being directed from the top down. Most of the initiative has come from the bottom up, and so we see power and commitment coming from trust, and rather than one organization taking over with it. There's a little picture here of a conceptual model, and it's just sort of to show you how you have society involved, you have individuals, and you have group organization, and the main point is that there is communicative action across all lines, so that everybody is on the same track in terms of sharing and operating these the networks. You can't talk about networks without going into social support, and I just briefly want to say that that some of the components of social support are emotional support, informational support, appraisal support, and instrumental support. And out of social support come support groups. And initially, we used to conduct support groups, and they were extremely efficient and benefit so many people. We had one woman that came to every support group for 6 times over. She would come back to the group, and her one question was, "Why does my son abuse me?" And the other group members, you know, you'd think when you kept seeing her over and over, you wonder, you know, did she get any help? It was therapeutic too for the other members because they helped her out, and I think in the end she did have some benefit for it. But support groups, I can't emphasize enough, they're cheap, and people get so much out of them because just being able to speak and to be heard is very therapeutic. One of the slides there talks about the secret sauce for catalyzing networks. A study was done to see what people felt contributed really to social change, and openness was one of the most important things, and being relevant. So those are 2 things to keep in mind. In terms of moving forward, we have to continue to grow and to nourish World Day and to evaluate World Day and the networks also. We also need more support from WHO and the UN, because what we're trying to do is to give everybody around the globe a chance to benefit from mutual sharing and communication. So also, obviously, we need funding and other resources. Now, evaluation, Raeann's going to be speaking more about that, but I just want to say that we don't really know how well networks are working. We don't know the small stuff about it. We don't know how we can improve, and we know some of what we've learned, but we don't know everything. And so we're really asking you today if you can give us a hand in identifying gaps that you see. You're working with groups, and if you're not, maybe after this you will start a group or become part of a group. But tell us what you see is going on, and what you would recommend in terms of an action plan, and where are the gaps? Where are the things that we're not doing right? We know everything we're doing right, and it's wonderful, but we don't know the things that aren't working. We don't know where we're spending money, and we shouldn't be. We don't know whether we should be topping up another area. Like what's the performance level, and what are some of your ideas in terms of networks and groups that can serve to improve what is going on and what can be going on. You know, the World Day this is the 11th anniversary of World Day, and we have no idea how many activities there are. We don't know how many community-based activities there are, how many senior-based activities. So we got to get a handle on this and see, are we on the right track? We know we've been doing pretty well, but we also know that there's room for improvement. And after 11 years, there's got to be some things that we need to change, and we need your help in this direction. So if you could put into the chat room there or send us something after, maybe on your way home you'll think, oh, that's a good idea, and just send it back into us so that we can work to improve what we're doing. I'm now going to turn over to Raeann, who's got lots of great information and examples for you. Raeann, you're on.
Thanks, Elizabeth. It's a pleasure to be joined by both Elizabeth and Patricia for the webinar today. So I'm going to talk a little bit if around the overview, if you can just go to the next slide, Benedict, from a perspective of not only our organization with Elder Abuse Ontario, which our former name was the Prevention of the Ontario Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, but we've recently changed that to Elder Abuse Ontario in the last couple of years. But what I want to do just in the next 10 minutes or so is just to highlight some of the successes of WEAAD and some of the programs that have been implemented within Ontario that engaged community members and the media to sort of take action and start the conversation to prevent elder abuse. And sort of highlighting that and how we've sort of taking the strategies to reach certain target audiences, including intergenerational sectors, and taking a positive outlook or framing of WEAAD to engage both the community and media. And Elizabeth sort of touched on the fact that, you know, this is our 11th year, all because Elizabeth's initiative in terms of starting WEAAD and taking the step forward that, you know, we as a world need to address this. And we just had a meeting the other day with our Canadian Network Board saying how much more communities and organizations as well as business partners are doing on the front level of our communities across the globe in terms of the awareness and engagement. And it is really hard, as Elizabeth indicated, to evaluate that. But I think just as I go through this, we'll see some of the ways that we are trying to sort of measure that and get some impact on who's out there and how engaged they are. Oh, so the next slide, sorry. So in terms of awareness, sometimes awareness can be a challenge to individuals. Sorry, can you just go back one? Sorry, I think we just skipped a slide, Benedict. Can you just go back one slide? Okay, so with Elder Abuse Ontario, we have collaborated with our local elder abuse networks and organizations to plan activities and to mobilize community action. And we can't, as you all know, we can't do this alone. We do have to engage in partnerships with different sectors. And I think over time, as we've evolved and during doing education and training and outreach, that we have reached so many different sectors that we never thought might even be involved in the response to elder abuse, and we've gained so many new partnerships, and they are now being involved in training their individuals, such as first responders, EMS workers, dental hygienists, you name it. We are really making strides to do to raise that awareness, and those powerful connections and collaborations really do make an impact in the community, especially when it comes to WEAAD, because we're seeing more engagement in the community from that. So.
Sorry, my mouse track is doing crazy things.
Sorry. Can you just go forward?
Mm-hmm.
So in Ontario, in Elder Abuse Ontario, we actually have a website that's dedicated to WEAAD because we feel it's really important for people to have resources and tools to engage and assist individuals in the planning. And we not only did this in isolation, we worked with Manitoba specifically in terms of looking at their model of how they play a role in trying to help others within the province to plan, provide resources sort of at their fingertips that they can adapt and modify for their own planning. So we also, to support our networks in planning activities, this year we've had 2 webinar planning meetings with our networks, and in Ontario we have over 50 elder abuse networks that are almost all of them are engaged in planning some sort of event or activity around elder abuse awareness, either on June 15th or sometime during that week. Go to the next slide. So these are just some of the ideas that people have kind of come up with in terms of strategies to reach the different target audiences. So one of the popular things last year we did was flash mobs. So one of our networks, and there was a couple of networks that actually planned choreography and went into malls and did flash mobs that grabbed media's attention, because the media, to get engaged and promote this, are really interested in the sort of the positive, fun activities that are happening, excuse me, in Ontario. Some people have done flag raising, workshops, health fairs, community walks.
Hold on. Let's see what we have here. Actually, I can hear someone. Could I just ask you to mute yourself, whoever it is who just arrived?
This is Donna Cooper. I'm with the
Okay.
Delta Texas.
Just a moment. Raeann, please continue.
That's okay. Okay, so we also engaged, you know, some groups are having breakfast things. We also try to engage our dignitaries, whether that's our minister, which you see in the picture down here, Mario Sergio, as well as mayors, MPs, MPPs, and events. Because that also gets media coming, because they also promote a message around prevention and how important it is within our government to prevent the issue of elder abuse in the province. Oh, we went backwards again.
Anyone going through a tunnel right now?
Okay, so these are just some of the pictures of other events that have sort of happened in terms of getting the engagement. And you'll see a couple of the ones on the top where this is in Durham region, and I know that we have some representative on the line from Durham, where we actually engage seniors to be the advocates. And I think that's really important as we plan WEAAD events, is because, as Elizabeth mentioned, that seniors need to have a voice and be heard. And these individuals, they had the Minister of State below who actually attended that event, and on the placards people are going through on the roads honking horns showing support, but it can be as well organized and getting a lot of attention from community to a smaller sort of a table in one of the small businesses where people can sort of pick up material and see about the issue, having coffee available. So we are really trying to engage individuals. I think the other thing that we try to do is intergenerational programs, because it's the youth that also need to be involved in promoting the WEAAD. And we have had, as you know, the Intergenerational Day, which Sharon McKenzie has taken quite an initiative trying to get that incorporated across the nation. I know it sort of went across into the U.S. this year as well. And that's sort of a lead up to WEAAD. And I know that more organizations are reaching out to schools to do plays and drama, events, poster contests, you name it. We're trying to get more youth involved in promoting WEAAD. The next slide. So ways that we're reaching out, again, we're trying, I guess the one thing is that underlines it is having it so it's fun. Some fun for people to participate in. Seniors are doing, or other people are engaged in activities. Again, I talked about parliamentary action. Proclamations are a very good way of strategies that we've found in Ontario also to get not only smaller municipalities engaged, but they shows also the community how important this issue and gets people talking about the issue around prevention. The next one. So again, I think like most people, which has started was the wearing of purple. We still continue to promote that. We see that in press releases where maybe organizations are doing, they don't have time to organize something on a bigger scale, but let's say they're doing a golf tournament and everyone just wears purple, or people just wear purple to work that day. It just kind of, it's a small action, but it makes a big impact because people are kind of wondering, why is everybody wearing purple? And even having a sign up just really can make a difference. So we see so many different approaches. The next slide. So last year, one of our signature events, because it was the 10th anniversary, what we did in Ontario was that we took the initiative to put a spotlight on elder abuse into the spotlight by lighting up the CN Tower purple. And this actually idea came from one of our networks, and then we helped facilitate to put that plan into action. So again, we had our parliamentary individuals, representatives coming. We had a table for kids for face painting, and unfortunately the fog kind of rolled in at the last minute, but we really did have it really made an impact, and it was something different that people really liked. And I know now other provinces are looking at lighting up things, big buildings and things purple. I know that they're doing that in BC as well. So that was something different, and I think that also in Calgary they were doing that as well. So again, it was a very successful event that was held. Next. So one of the other initiatives that we started last year, and looking at the intergenerational and positive framing, is that we're really trying to promote dignity and respect. And I think that's what we're all trying to achieve with World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And we recognize that there are severe dramatic things that happen to older adults in terms of the impact it has on physical abuse and emotional and financial. But we want to turn around to, really profile the rights of older adults in a positive manner to, show that empowerment. So we have a campaign last year as well as this year, and it's Selfie with a Senior. Very popular with people. It's very positive. It engages people in a fun manner. The media like the idea as well. And we have a number of our organizations and networks that are picking up on the idea. So we're hoping that people will tweet out the hashtag. And we'll see how that goes. We're also we know that there's a hashtag WEAAD 2016, so we've just added EAO on the end. So we find, and I know with the Canadian network as well, that we found that Twitter is an exceptional way of promoting the change, as Elizabeth was talking about, making the social change and movement of elder abuse. So we're finding that this is an effective tool with Twitter and Instagram, and to get the message out, and and it goes to so many people that we probably wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. Next. Well, this is just posters from last year and then this year. You can go to the next one. So I kind of think I've alluded to some of these as well. So we've also had a lot of media this year, particularly calling, asking for interviews or writing newspaper articles to profile WEAAD, which is really positive. And again, what we do on our website is we actually have a place where people can actually upload their events and activities. So we have create a calendar of events that shows where things are happening and locations and that kind of thing. So people, if they're interested in going to an event, they know where they can go. Next. And I guess the last highlight I just wanted to say is another campaign that we're really trying to promote this year, which is an initiative called Neighbors, Friends, and Families, It's Not Right. And it is a campaign that has been implemented across Canada but for the last 2 years, and a lot of people have been trained on this program. So we're taking the initiative with Elder Abuse Ontario to continue informing bystanders about how they can be engaged in starting the conversation around elder abuse if they recognize it. And again, we're doing some social media messaging around that, handing out brochures and doing presentations and conferences on the It's Not Right as well. So can you go to the next slide? And lastly, I just wanted to say around that social media, I think it really helps when we're all kind of following each other. We have consistent messaging, a united voice, which increases our outreach to this larger population. This picture on the side was a campaign that was done by a college, and they started a Talk Washes Away, Elder Abuse Doesn't, was basically their message from students. And that college, again, is they have about 3 or 4 different groups who are doing WEAAD activities this year to promote to their peers about the importance of this issue. Last slide, I think. So these are just some of the It's Not Right brochure, or media pictures and posters that we're promoting through the Twitter account and Instagram to get people reposting or with the hashtag It's Not Right and the WEAAD pictures. And that's just our website, which is, if you go onto our main website, you can find that under WEAAD in the news. And we also have resources. These are just samples of resources. And there's our website at the bottom. Just samples of fact sheets and posters. People use that poster to then put their own content information in it to develop their posters for their WEAAD events. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raeann. Okay, let me just make sure that I got our last presenter on, Patricia, and that we can hear her as I try to mute everyone else. Patricia, are you on? There you are. Just a moment, Patricia. And you are unmuted. All right, Patricia, you're on.
Thanks so much. And I so appreciate being invited to participate in this important webinar celebrating World Day. And certainly Elizabeth and I go way back with the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. And Elizabeth, you've been just a tremendous leader in this movement. I've been asked to speak about human rights instruments and initiatives to address neglect, abuse, and violence against older people, but with a special emphasis on older women. And for this presentation, I'm wearing a couple of hats. One, I represented the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, which has special consultative status at the UN, at the New York UN site for a number of years, and I currently serve as president of the National or US Committee for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. First, the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, even though we began to work on this many years before, became an official UN day in December of 2010, when the UN General Assembly voted to add WEAAD to the UN calendar of special days. And June 15th is the designated day to reflect on the neglect, abuse, and violence experienced by older people as a human rights violation. Just to speak a little bit more about neglect, abuse, and violence against older people, and again, this is a UN context, a human rights context. Elder abuse is a human rights violation of the right to live a life of dignity, free of abuse. And this comes from the UN Principles for Older Persons that was ratified in 1991. The human rights perspective on elder abuse includes the right to live free of physical, sexual, and psychological abuse, financial exploitation, and neglect. And this comes from the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging. I'll speak a little more about that a little later. It also leads to a broader understanding of elder abuse to include elder abuse as a violation of the right to live free of discrimination, poverty, harmful traditional practices, and negative stereotyping. And related to older women, this comes from the Convention for the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Just to add one last bullet, the UN defines old age as beginning at 60 years and older. And when I talk about older women and older people in this context, I'm talking about people 60 years of age and older. In a number of UN documents, older women are identified as especially vulnerable to human rights abuses related to neglect, abuse, and violence. And some of these documents include the Madrid 2002 International Plan of Action on Aging, the CEDAW General Recommendation number 27, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, and I'm going to also talk briefly about a discussion paper that I helped prepare for an expert group meeting on neglect, abuse, and violence against older women that was held at the UN in 2013. So what is the human rights perspective on neglect, abuse, and violence against older people? And I'm sorry, next slide, please. It includes the concept of older people, including older women, as rights holders. It requires that enabling environments must be created for rights holders. And older people, whether actively contributing to families, communities, and society, or limited by cognitive and physical impairments, have the right to live in homes, communities, and societies in which their inherent individual worth is recognized and their needs respected. And next slide, please. In the human rights framework, governments are duty bearers and have the responsibility for ensuring that older persons' rights are observed. In this frame, older people are not considered victims and recipients of charity. They are fully entitled to the rights and privileges we all expect. Next slide, please. The International Plan of Action on Aging was promulgated out of the Second World Assembly on Aging held in Madrid in 2002. Active aging was an overarching theme. Recommendations for action were organized around 3 priority directions, and these included older people and development, recognizing that older people continue to be active and productive members of their society well into old age. Second is advancing health and well-being into old age. And the third is ensuring enabling and supportive environments. Just to look a little bit closely at the language that was included in the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging under Priority Direction 3, ensuring enabling and supportive environments. Under neglect, abuse, and violence, older women, it states, face greater risk of physical and psychological abuse due to discriminatory societal attitudes and non-realization of the human rights of women, and this is across the lifespan. Secondly, there are cumulative disadvantages for older women's society, looking at women's poverty, which it states is directly related to the absence of economic opportunity and autonomy. The third is on harmful stereotypes. And the Madrid plan noted that older women are particularly affected by misleading and negative stereotypes. And among the remedies that were cited in this international plan included the importance of minimizing the risks to older women of all forms of neglect, abuse, and violence through public awareness and protections, and promoting positive images of older women. Next slide, please. For the Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, General Recommendation number 27, this is an addenda to the Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and focuses specifically on the human rights of older women. This document states older women experience aging differently than men. The full development and advancement of women cannot be achieved without taking a life cycle approach. And it states parties have an obligation to recognize and prohibit violence against older women. And this includes the legislation on domestic violence, sexual violence, and violence in institutional settings. And this recommendation further states that states parties should investigate, prosecute, and punish all acts of violence against older women, including those committed as a result of traditional practices and beliefs. In November of 2013, an expert group meeting on neglect, abuse, and violence against older women was convened by the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs to address what it believed was a normative gap in human rights protection against violence against older women. And 18 experts and scholars around the globe were invited to come to the UN in New York City to identify gaps in research and recommend research agenda items to address these gaps. The discussion paper identified gaps in abuse prevalence research, and this included domestic violence research that often excludes women over the age of 49, past reproductive age, active aging research that is often gender neutral, focusing on older adults, not older women and older men, and vulnerable adult research that does not examine abuse prevalence by gender and age, including abuse conducted in care homes. And finally, this group noted the absence of good prevalence data, particularly on neglect, abuse, and violence against older women. And this was noted as a barrier to policy formulation and legal protection instruments that could focus on the need for protection of older women. Another human rights instrument is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And this is the post-2015 development agenda that supplants the Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs. And I wanted to note here that the MDGs did not reference older people at all. post-2015 development agenda unanimously was passed by the UN General Assembly in September of 2015. And I want to focus particularly on Goal 5, which was to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. And the achievement here, I think, for the aging advocacy network, the NGO network focusing on older people and human rights, is the inclusion of the all before women and girls. And this all is intended to be a code for women of all ages, including older women. So, end all forms of discrimination against all women across the lifespan of and girls everywhere, and eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls in the public and private spheres. And it seems like a small advance, but it was pretty significant for those of us working in this.
Patricia, I'm just going to interrupt for just a second.
Sure.
There's a couple people that have joined, Susan Fowler and Bernie. If you wouldn't mind just muting your microphones, there are some background noises, and we just have a few people that haven't muted their microphones. Thanks.
So what are some additional issues to be addressed? Discriminatory laws and practices against older women continue to fuel violence and abuse. And we know in some countries of the world, older women are targets of witchcraft accusations, harmful practices involving widows. And this can include financial abuse, denying rights to inheritance and property as examples. Older women are often excluded from studies on women and violence, based on ageist assumptions that older women do not experience domestic violence or sexual abuse, don't remember abuse due to age-specific cognitive limitations, and refuse to disclose or dwell on unpleasant memories. And we think it's very important that disaggregated data by gender and age must be captured and reported for indicators on violence by all nations. And finally, the aging of the global population means that by 2050, there will be over 1 billion older women in the world. So a focus on women in the later phases of their lives is critical to achieving gender equality and empowerment of women of all ages. Next slide, please. I want to emphasize the dynamic nature of human rights instruments. First, they evolve over time as gaps are identified. For example, CEDAW evolved as gaps in human rights protections for women were identified after the Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. And the First and Second World Assemblies on Aging evolved when gaps in protection for older women, and specifically older women, were identified. The First World Assembly on Aging, held in Vienna, focused on protections. And by the Second World Assembly in Madrid, there had evolved an emphasis on empowerment. Next slide, please. So the UN World Elder Abuse Awareness Day focuses attention on another gap in human rights protections for older adults, which is the right to live free of abuse. One initiative to address this gap is Every Woman Everywhere, reflecting Goal 5 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The Every Woman Everywhere Coalition is currently working together with over 200 experts globally to explore and develop a global treaty on violence against women, and this is women of all ages. This coalition is conducting a global consultation currently, which includes 20 expert committees comprised of frontline practitioners, lawyers, scholars, and survivors working in the field. One of these committees is focused on older women and widows of all ages, and I serve on this committee. Next slide, please. I've entitled this slide, "It's Up to Us," because sometimes work in the global arena seems very abstract, but it's very, very much dependent on member nations of the UN speaking up and signing on to progressive treaties and documents. And often nations are informed by people like us, members of the non-governmental organization or NGO community who can educate, inform, and advocate with our individual governments for a global solution to certainly problems of violence against older people. Again, the UN depends on its 193 member nations for support and data. And as experts, advocates, survivors, and citizens, we have a responsibility to work with our respective governments to raise awareness of gaps and respond to them. And UN WEAAD reminds us every June 15th that the prevention of neglect, abuse, and violence is an international issue. Thank you very much. And I have included some contact information for me for the International Network and the U.S. or National Committee if you would like to get in touch and get any of the copies of the documents that I've referenced here.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for your presentation. Thank to all three of you, as a matter of fact. And once again, we're really sorry about the background noise. We've been trying to solve it as we were going without disrupting the presentation too much, so hopefully it wasn't too painful. We now have 12 minutes left for a Q&A session, so we're going to attempt this if technology will let us. You can start typing your questions in the chat box, and I'm also going to unmute everyone. So not all at once, but let's try it. All right, let's see. So if anyone has any questions, please do say your name and say who your question is for.
Benedict, I would mute everybody again, and then if somebody has a question, then they put it in the chat box and then unmute them as the question is asked.
Okay, that's the plan. I think it might be easier that way. Okay, here we are. We are now all muted. So please feel free to use the chat box to ask your question. I know a little bit earlier we had a question regarding a potential hashtag that we could use to answer Elizabeth's request for evaluation. So I hope you had your answer. I would say use hashtag WEAAD 2016. It's a good one to use. Or you can contact CNPA and Elizabeth directly if you wish to send her more information. Let me have a look at the chat box, see if we have anything new. Oh, here we have a question. Is there federal or private funding available to assist state APS and AA units to sponsor ongoing WEAAD events? Let me unmute my presenters, if I can, unless, of course, there we go. All right, so, Raeann, do you have an answer? I'm unmuting you first.
Yeah, so we, a lot of the organizations of the elder abuse networks that we work with, some have their own funding pockets that they use to plan events. Sometimes they will look for business or corporate sponsors to help support their events. Maybe if they're having a silent auction, they may ask for donations or refreshments in that regards. So they actually go out and do some of that sponsorship. Right now, we don't have funding specifically for WEAAD that we provide, or the government, as far as I know. However, I do know some groups do apply for grants to do activities or events that may incorporate a WEAAD activity into the bigger project that they may be doing. So that's kind of how we've seen things in Ontario. I don't know if anybody else has an experience otherwise from the States, if there's other initiatives, or if the other speakers have any ideas.
I'm not aware of any specific federal funding for WEAAD to the individual Adult Protective Services offices, but as you could probably tell, I'm affiliated with the School of Social Work. And we do encourage, for example, students as part of their, these are master's and bachelor students, as part of their placements to, or fieldwork assignments, to organize a WEAAD observation, and this is also true of people placed in APS agencies. So right now it takes kind of the individual or office-specific initiative to do this, and there are a lot of resources available, I think, in the community. But this is something to raise with your administrator in APS if this is something of interest.
Thank you, Patricia. We also have an answer in the chat box from Sherry Baker here in British Columbia, who is saying the BC CRN, which is 60 networks in BC, has done 4 years of evaluation. So that's actually regarding the previous question. Thank you. And how they provide small grants for community for WEAAD events with the link to the website. So if you are in BC or you want to take this as an example, you can most definitely visit the website. It's quite informative. I saw a question earlier that there
was a question around the financial exploitation. So just in regards to that, a lot of the groups do promotion, specifically around powers of attorney. They'll do workshops or education to educate older adults. But I think one of the unique things that has happened in the last year and this year is one of the banks, the Credit Unions of Canada, has developed some training for their banking staff around financial exploitation, and the staff during WEAAD are encouraged. So they produce this, but during Seniors Month time, there's a fee for that. So during WEAAD, I believe it's either free or they've reduced the rate for the staff within those credit unions across Canada to take that training. They also host a webinar for the credit union staff to participate in learning more about financial abuse and prevention tips and initiatives that are going on. And then the credit unions themselves provide individually at their own small banks to set up tables and give pamphlets away and do things on a more local level as well as a national level. So in regards to that, that's one new sort of a innovative initiative from a banking perspective.
I see another question came in while you were talking from Paul Smith in the UK, interested in highlighting the issue of financial abuse as well. So the police service in the UK works closely to raise awareness with local trading standards departments. Is this something that happens in the US and in Canada?
In the US, we have the Federal Consumer Protection Bureau that has some really excellent training materials online. And if anyone would like to get the websites from me and want to email me, I can forward this. So that's one example.
Is Elizabeth still online?
That's a very good question. Let me see. I might have to unmute us all briefly to hear whether she's still on. Just a second. Elizabeth, are you still around?
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hello. Oh, okay. Just in relation to funding, I would like to make the point that if we had a national strategy on elder abuse, World Day would be included in this, and funding would be allocated to it. And I think this is the way we have to go, because World Day has to have some funding, and this is the time that we start to address this. We've come so far, and now we've got to go further.
Thank you.
I know engaging and learning more about financial abuse, particularly the frauds department investigations. So on a local level, or as well as at police college training, they do have conferences specifically around educating around financial abuse. So that's an issue that they've both the regional police officers as well as OPP, Ontario Provincial Police, are engaged in learning and educating more seniors. There's a lot of education that they do around frauds and scams as well, because they're seeing more cases being reported within their departments.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? We still have 3 minutes.
There's a question, do any of the speakers know of WEAAD events in this year specifically celebrating older adults from the diversity and ethnocultural, gender, LGBTQ, and other ability backgrounds? I know from Ontario, in Toronto, they have, I know that there's at least two sessions that are happening around LGBTQ awareness issues. They've had a series of conference. Rainbow Ontario, I believe, is one of the organizations that was planning some events. I don't know if we've posted all those flyers on our website at this point, but they are being planned, and we have other cultural communities that are engaged in planning WEAAD as well.
Well, someone is maybe typing another question. I would like to remind everyone at the very end of the presentation we have, and you will receive this link by email as well very soon, we have a link to a very brief survey of your experience of this webinar. I'm expecting a lot of answers regarding the background noise, and I'm very sorry about that. We'll work on it for next time. But don't hesitate to let us know, and also let us know what you would like to hear about, what you would like us to focus on for the next webinars. The survey deadline is June 24th, and you can always contact us either on Twitter at CNPA or by email at my email address, which is at the bottom right here, so don't hesitate. And oh, I see we have one more question here from Marisana Torsini. It can be challenging to recruit the community, seniors and youth, to participate in elder abuse initiatives. Do you have any tips or advice on how to engage people? Raeann, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess it just sort of comes back to kind of the initiatives I was talking about in terms of making it a fun event or a fun day that engages older adults, doing some sort of activity, like you saw the run with the seniors by a roadway with placards, and it was that they were promoting the message and they were actually helping sort of plan those events. I think going to seniors groups who are already active in your community can sometimes engage them by maybe not knowing about it, but getting them to recognize that it's an issue. And I think we're seeing more and more senior uptake and being participatory in World Abuse Awareness Day. And it also happens like within the networks that exist within different provinces, territories, that a lot of them do incorporate seniors on those committees, who then take an active role in participating in WEAAD events when they come up. So that's kind of some of the tips or advice that we've used in trying to engage older adults. I don't know if anybody else has any other ideas.
Patricia? Or Elizabeth?
Yes, I think as much personal contact is great. I think people like to be approached person to person and have conversations and have people listen to them and have phones that they can call and somebody will answer, and have go-to groups, send somebody personally to really establish contact. I think people respond greatly when there is some relationship.
And I think
it's all giving social support.
And certainly planning community-based World Elder Abuse Awareness Day observations, bringing together school kids and for example, older adults active in senior centers and community-based programs for older people is a wonderful way of getting the generations together to educate each other on the issue of elder abuse prevention. And have fun, as Elizabeth mentioned.
Great. Well, I think that's a very great and positive note to finish on, because we have now reached the end of our hour. So thank you very much to all of our presenters and all the people who came on today to learn a bit more and exchange ideas. The presentation, the PowerPoint slides are up on the CNPA website, cnpa.ca. You will find them. They're available for download. You can always access them as well through the email that was sent to you when you were for for the webinar. If you have any other question, you know where to reach us, cnpa.ca. My email address is visible on the last slide of the presentation as well, and so are the contact information for 3 presenters. So thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing you and seeing you again for the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia, Raeann, and Elizabeth, thank you very much. We'll be chatting soon, I'm sure, off the platform.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.